Hello and welcome to Maximum Norah Jones, the first talking book about Norah. It was written and researched by Michael Sumsion, music is by Amanda Thompson, and it is read by Nancy McLean. You can check out our full catalogue on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk.
It has been surprising to me because I did expect to just have a little album, maybe a couple people would know me, and then hopefully I'll get better at making records, and eventually someday, hopefully I would get some recognition. That was sort of my grand plan, but I'm really happy with the way it's gone.
There are certain types of singers whom we feel have always existed in our collective consciousness. Those whose impeccable delivery and charisma draw us listeners into a special universe which transcends the everyday and prosaic. Their protean talent is unafraid to express itself with vigour, charm, self-confidence, and the knowledge that it doesn't come along very often. Whenever we hear them let fly, we recognise those voices immediately and are transported to another time and place, a rarefied state. Such singers are few and far between, emerging only once or twice in every generation. Names like Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin and Eva Cassidy spring to mind, all scintillating, outstanding examples of the female vocalist's art, a list to which we can now comfortably add the name of Norah Jones, a truly spellbinding, awe-inspiring young talent who has relatively recently arrived on the scene and taken our breath away. Her golden pipes can convey heartbreak, sadness, yearning, mystery and joy in equal measures. And yet she is so much more than just a fine vocalist. Accomplished pianist, songwriter, arranger and producer extraordinaire, her depth of expression knows no bounds and is surely to evolve still further. Her music has already effortlessly slipped and continues to ease its way further into the musical consciousness of a generation. Jazz-based music is not an easy sell at the best of times, and although her music embraces a variety of idioms, it certainly has a strong jazz flavour, which makes its climb to popular stature all the more impressive. Talent such as that of Norah Jones would perhaps find a way of flourishing at any time, in any given era. The grace and inspiration which unfolds throughout Norah's work can seem superficially effortless, but this does her diligence, enthusiasm and attention to detail a disservice. Even with covers of famous standards, Norah manages to flip them on their head and reinvent them, without ever disrespecting the tradition. She makes words and phrases more meaningful, melodies of familiar songs suddenly new and vital again. It's quite simply so easy to believe what she sings. Norah can make you shiver, tremble and cry, or shout and celebrate. Her vocals are a mix of honey and fire, with all kinds of spices thrown in. The power and range of this extraordinary young woman and the emotions that she can evoke are astounding. Like a lightning conductor, she can take the whole million volts of soul and rechannel it so that we mere mortals can listen and interpret. They say that rock and roll is from the waist down, but her music is from the waist up. It is head and body stuff. It reaches out because it reaches upwards. Norah's songs are drowsy, sweet and magical, emerging as if in a dream and gradually rising to consciousness. This music carries so much conviction, belief, and is so solid, built on a past and yet determinedly driving into the future. It glories in the world, every little thing about it, the joy and the pain. Powerful and enthusiastic, but equally classy and self-assured, it gets under your skin and won't come out. One pertinent question which could conceivably be put forward by listeners could be, is this jazz? And the answer must be yes. It is jazz because Norah sings jazz, no matter what the accompaniment is, no matter what the song is. The phrasing, the timbre of her voice, the escapes from the melody, all are true to the spirit of jazz. Dressing her in strings or taking on Hank Williams' songbook does not alter her style, it enhances it. Norah Jones' success proves that sometimes something ineffably special can still cut through the hype machine and reaffirm beauty and majesty in people's hearts. There's nothing ideological or attention-seeking about her music. These are simple, timeless songs, played with a heartwarming kind of genius.
Well, I did listen to country music and, lots of Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. And then I got into jazz in high school, and I listened to only jazz for like 6 years. I loved it, and that's what I wanted to do.
Norah Jones was born on March the 30th, 1979, in New York City. Raised by her single mother, Sue, Norah never knew her famous father, the legendary Indian sitar maestro, Ravi Shankar. Her mother and Ravi were involved with each other only briefly, and for the first 9 years of her life, Norah saw him just 9 times. When she was 4, Norah and her mother moved to the Dallas suburb of Grapevine, Texas. From a very early age, Norah was absorbing good music and developing a growing curiosity about what she heard. Her earliest musical reference points were derived from her mother's extensive LP collection and from classic oldies radio stations. A noisy, boisterous kid who shaved her Barbie dolls' heads, she assimilated whatever music her mother cared to play. Sue's musical taste was Catholic, encompassing jazz, blues, country, classical, soul, folk and R&B. Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Etta James, Willie Nelson, Billie Holiday, Miles Davis, Judy Garland, Chopin, Pavarotti and Fred Astaire all featured heavily. She had an 8-album set by Billie Holiday, which proved a turning point for her precocious daughter. Picking out one disc she particularly liked and playing it incessantly until she knew every nuance of those grooves, the song You Go to My Head became established as a firm favourite with Norah. Childhood visits to her grandparents' house in Oklahoma invariably encompassed listening to her grandmother's Willie Nelson albums, which subconsciously trained the young Norah to develop an ear for country, which she would capitalise on in later life. Nelson's Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain was her grandpa's favourite tune. She began singing in church choirs at the age of 5 and commenced piano lessons 2 years later. It was obvious even at this age that she was a talent in the making. She took to the piano naturally, and her singing received rave notices and much encouragement from her teachers. She was a gifted pupil, always willing to embrace musical education and practice feverishly. Vocally, Norah exhibited a tenderness and sophistication far beyond her years, whilst her piano playing displayed exquisite poise, vigour and command of harmony. Teachers, family and friends sat up and took notice of this nascent genius, this irrepressible musical prodigy. In junior high, she played alto sax in her school's marching band and was absorbing new influences. Crowded House's Don't Dream It's Over became one of her most treasured songs, and in high school and college, she devoured the work of Joni Mitchell and Nina Simone. Folk, country, blues, soul and singer-songwriter traditions were feeding into Norah's jazz sensibility to create the template for her own music.
Well, I went to an arts magnet high school, so like a performing arts high school, and I just sort of was doing it in high school. They would send us out on gigs, the school would. It was really cool. And when it came time to go to college, I thought, oh, I guess I'm going to music school because that's what I do. It just sort of happened, and I knew that's what I wanted to do all along, kind of. So there was never really one moment.
At the age of 15, Norah and her mother moved from Grapevine to Dallas's Central City, where Norah entered the prestigious Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts, an institution also attended by the likes of Erykah Badu and Roy Hargrove. The stage school was geared to making the most of Norah's obvious musical gifts. The regime was tough, but she knocked out her tutors with her winning mix of dazzling musicianship, warm personality and application. By now a prodigious talent on piano, Norah was stretching her frame of reference and harnessing her love of classic popular song. She played her first gig on her 16th birthday in 1995, an open mic night at a local coffee house. She performed a version of I'll Be Seeing You that she'd learnt from listening to Etta James's treatment of the Billie Holiday classic. Her bravura display was a revelation, sending the punters into a hypnotic trance of hushed amazement. Here was a God-given talent, fully formed and awesomely self-confident. As Norah's taste for the Great American Songbook grew and grew, so her musical facilities progressed and matured at a frantic pace. Her choice of material was eclectic and unpredictable, but rooted in a love of melody and songcraft. She learned hundreds of songs which showed a soft, sentimental side, a flair for improvisation, the kind of uncalculated passion that came out of the church, and a taste for Broadway-styled show tunes delivered with gusto and genuine feeling. Her own compositional style showed a clear debt to the classic canon of American song. Her voice had become a gargantuan instrument. There was an intensity of feeling, a resonance of emotion and experience that couldn't be manufactured or simulated. The emotion would well up in a cry, uplifting the listener, infusing even the most prosaic of lines with a profundity that said worlds about things, often previously left unsaid or unexamined. Her vocal performances provided moments of eloquence and wisdom. While still at Booker T, Norah picked up 3 prestigious Downbeat Student Music Awards. In 1996, she won the Best Jazz Vocalist and Best Original Composition categories and earned a second SMA for Best Jazz Vocalist a year later. She attracted the rave notices and respect of both teachers and contemporaries. Here was someone clearly destined for greatness.
When I moved to New York, I started listening to like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, and I started hearing local songwriters. And that's how I sort of just got back into other stuff. When I was doing jazz, I didn't really do anything else or listen to much else.
Having graduated from Booker T, Norah enrolled as a student at the University of North Texas, nationally renowned for its music courses, where she majored in jazz piano and focused her efforts on a more solid musical foundation. By her own admission, she liked to cruise around in a sky blue 1971 Cadillac sedan DeVille, dressed like a slob during this period. As well as studying for her music degree, Norah kept her hand in by performing with a band called Laszlo, who specialised in a brooding, intense strain of dark, jazzy rock music. Though this style wasn't her taste, the experience helped with her stagecraft and further increased her confidence. Working alongside a group of musicians with different tastes, expectations and methods was invaluable. However, her career and life were about to be turned around in a spectacular way, quite by chance. The summer of 1999, at the end of her second year of university, she holidayed in New York at the invitation of a friend. She accepted the offer of a summer sublet from her friend's mother in Greenwich Village and never returned to North Texas State, not even to pick up her belongings. Immediately knocked out by the city's thriving music scene, she began hobnobbing with local musicians and songwriters. She felt at home in such a creative environment, so much so that she turned her back on 2 years of her music degree. Here was an opportunity to do it, not just be taught it. This was real life, real music.